Oh, welcome into happy hour. It's Victory Monday. It's a very sweet Victory Monday. If you were up late last night, you're probably tired like me, but the Packers won, and that's all that matters. They beat the Titans, the then 10-4 Titans, now the 10-5 Titans. Supposedly the third best offense in the league, depending on what standard you're looking at. Definitely not anymore after the Packers basically disarmed them and held them to 14 points. Okay, Maggie, how you feeling?
I feel so good. This was the best game of the season by a large margin and perfect time. Absolutely perfect time.
Yeah, it was. We'll probably dive into this a little more, but I think probably the most complete game the Packers have played in not just this season, but like in a long time. Just an absolute ownership of all four quarters in pretty much all three phases, although they did get saved on special teams by a somewhat non-existent offsides penalty, and dropped a 40 burger on a playoff bound team that people thought had a really good chance to make like a pretty deep push. Just like very, very, very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it on Pax What She Said, on Happy Hour, just the idea that this could very well come down to a whoever has the ball last, one possession, field goal, like game-winning moment. And we absolutely, at about 3 minutes into the third quarter, we're like, oh, okay, well, pack it up. Like, this is going to be a chill second half.
Yep. Yeah, it was everything that I thought would happen did not happen in like the best way. We held Derrick Henry, or the Packers defense held Derrick Henry to 98 yards, which for any other running back would probably be not that impressive, but you know, it's Derrick Henry who's almost at 2,000 yards on the season, so less than 100. I think he's had 100 yards or more in the last like 8 or 9 road games. And then he gets to Snowy Lambeau, and Packers defense is like, we heard you, and no. And another on fire night, Devontae Adams, 3 touchdowns. Like, really, we're watching greatness. I don't know if you saw the stat, but he's only the third receiver in history to have 16 or more touchdowns in a season. And he joins Randy Moss and Chris Carter. So
good company.
Good company. Like, you're literally watching. We are watching greatness happen on the field. It's almost like you don't realize it's happening until it's almost over.
Yeah.
So going to appreciate it into the postseason.
I feel that way about Aaron Rodgers sometimes too. Like, we've just seen sustained excellence for so long that when he goes out and has an MVP season like he's having this year, even though he's such a good player and he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, like the way he's playing is just on another level this season. And it's like even easier to appreciate that even after seeing the sustained success for so long. So that tandem together too, already, you know, setting records together, best duo in league history or in franchise history for the Packers now.
Yeah. Yeah. It just happened, right? With one reception over Rodgers to Jordy, which I think as Packers fans, you think about that duo as like unobtainable, you know, unreplicable. And it is in a way. It's very, very, very different. They're very different receivers, but just as amazing. You mentioned Aaron Rodgers. I think he is the MVP.
Oh, he has to be.
I listened to a good amount of like kind of around the NFL, and I'm not working this week. So I was listening to a lot this morning, and it seems pretty unanimous at this point that Aaron Rodgers will be the MVP, which is a personal stat. I think he would much prefer to not have MVP and win the Super Bowl.
Why not both?
Why not both? I know. I'm just making that assumption for him. But still just an unbelievable feat that we are watching Matt LaFleur. I think, you know, we joked about it right before the season that, in his second year with Matt Ryan. And then here we are. It's not a joke. It's happening. It happened.
Yeah. And just the fact that he throws a pick and the game is so far gone that we're like, well, he already has 44 touchdowns. So like, what's one in, like, I guess it's only 5. Like, he'll be fine. Like the stats this season are just so astronomical for Rodgers. And, you know, if you want to talk about like the Panthers game last week and him not having an MVP level performance, Patty Mahomes did not look very good against the Falcons, and they still managed to win. So, you know, I think
only because they missed a field goal, not because the Chiefs did anything.
Right, exactly. So, it's hard to win in this league. We've said that about some of these games, on previous happy hours when the team doesn't seem necessarily happy despite a win. So to put up that convincing of a victory against a playoff team with what was the number one offense in the NFL points for, now it's the Packers again, looks really good.
Agreed. Yeah. I think that we know that this didn't really impact playoff seeding based off of what happened earlier on Sunday. But this was more, I think, a prove it to the league and prove it to yourselves that you can actually beat a team like the Titans. They're a very, very good team. They're one of the best teams that we've played this season. And now you look back and you think about all of the playoff bound teams that the Packers have beat. You beat the Saints and now you beat the Titans. No one else seems that scary. I know I messaged you probably really late last night because this is what I was thinking about at 1:30 in the morning. But I was thinking about what we just accomplished against, I keep saying we. I feel like I'm part of this team. I didn't accomplish anything. What the Packers accomplished against Derrick Henry and all the other players that you and I talked about last week, right? Like A.J. Brown, Jonnu Smith, they don't have, it's not just Derrick Henry. It's a whole complete team that they just beat. It just makes going up against a team like the Chiefs less scary to me.
Yeah. And I mean, we talked about all of the weapons where if you can eliminate Derrick Henry, there's A.J. Brown and Corey Davis. Corey Davis had 0 receptions, none of that. Yeah, he was locked down. No visitors, Jair says, doesn't get many visitors on the island outside of the kind of weird Ryan Tannehill run, which, stuff like that happens. And when you're overcommitting to Derrick Henry, I think if you asked Packers fans going into the game, if you give up 98 yards and no scores to Derrick Henry, how do you feel about the game? Packers fans maybe wouldn't want to admit it, but I think you'd take that. You would say, yeah, that's a pretty good performance for the Packers team. They have a shot now.
Yeah, 100%. What do you want to talk? Let's talk about the offense first, then the defense.
Let's do it.
That's what we normally do. Also, show everyone what you're drinking.
Spotted Cow.
I had my first Spotted Cow last night. I had multiple first Spotted Cows last night.
How did
I tried
you like
a different kind. I had that one, and then I had another kind.
Moon Man?
Moon Man. It was good.
I was going to say, I remember that being Aaron's favorite, I think, above Spotted Cow or Banky, one of the two. So
probably
I figured
one of them. They were delicious. My take, they were like, what's your, sorry, we're going on a tangent now about Spotted Cow, but they were like, what do you think? And I was like, I could see how you could drink 5 of them and it would be, you wouldn't even notice.
Been there, done that.
What? Who said that? Okay. Packers offense scored 40 points. That's the 4th time this season that this team has done that. Once each time against a division opponent and now against the Tennessee Titans. Honestly, it would have been more if Mason Crosby hadn't, missed the extra point or there was the field goal blocked?
It was the 2-point conversion.
The 2-point conversion was stopped. So that's 6 points that were left off the board on the field. So it could have been 46-14. And I think one thing that's interesting to me is that, it was 19-0 and then all of a sudden it's 19-14. And something that the Packers have struggled with, I think, is when it gets really close, they usually start to fall apart a little bit, or they keep it close, or they keep the other team in the game somehow. They didn't do that last night. They went on to hold the Titans to 0 points after they scored that Ryan Tannehill running touchdown, and then they scored 21 unanswered, which to me was just said a lot about where this team is going and how potentially they could look, facing adversity in the postseason.
Yeah, and I really like the way that they were able to kind of put the game away. We've seen them, like you said, kind of panic, shy away from the run game. Like we saw full ground and pound for the entirety of the game, all 4 quarters. When it wasn't Aaron Jones, it was A.J. Dillon or vice versa. Like they were always able to run the ball. And I think that, especially in the snow, I know a lot of Packer fans were kind of concerned going into the game where you see the snow, you think of the slippery conditions, and, it always benefits the offense, which is why going into the game, it kind of made more and more sense to me that it could end up being a shootout if your defense doesn't have a lot of traction. Right. So the fact that the Packers were still able, Devontae just lights out like always, and it was just such an impressive holistic performance from the team. And, Matt LaFleur had said it really was the most complimentary game they've played all year. And honestly, it might have been the best performance of his tenure as a head coach, I think.
Yeah, he called a great game. Even I think there was like the first series where AJ Dillon wasn't getting much going. I was like, oh, shoot. Like, he's going to just take him out and we're just going to run Aaron Jones. And I really like that he kept AJ in there and knew that like more reps are just, he's just going to like find his groove, see the field the longer he's on it. And obviously we saw him have his, I would consider a breakout game. I'm not sitting here saying, oh, he's the next, he's not the next Derrick Henry, but I think there's something to be said for when your number is called and you have to step up in prime time against a very good team. Granted, the Titans defense isn't the best, but like still, it's a big moment and he rose to the occasion. And when they asked him to do the things that they drafted him to do, he did them and more. I don't think he's ever going to forget trucking over a defensive lineman in the end zone and reaching for a touchdown. Like that is some not rookie stuff. And it was really impressive. And I know that you love him, so you can go off.
I mean, I think, I thought I saw on Twitter, it was something like 24 carries going into December. And, a lot of us were wondering when we were going to see him and what that was going to look like and how Matt LaFleur was going to utilize three backs. And, with Jamal Williams being out of commission for this game, Matt LaFleur was like, we finally had the opportunity then to give him extended looks. And that's what we saw. And, it was just, it was really exciting.
Yeah, it was really exciting. 124 yards, two touchdowns. Finally got his Lambeau leap with a little help from Allen Lazard.
It's a little help.
He even was, he caught some passes too. Like he was catching passes out of the backfield. They really asked him to do a lot. And today in the press conference, Matt LaFleur mentioned that he felt like AJ was finally in the more like well-rounded zone and they felt comfortable putting him in for pass pro. And I don't know if that's like the reason for it or if it's because Jamal was out or the weather or whatever it was or a combination, but they just felt like he was ready to get more than 5 carries a game and he produced. So I would expect to see a lot more of him in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think the nice thing about that too is just the fresh legs. Like, when Jamal comes back, he'll still get his touches, but you have somebody now that is fully available, has gained an understanding of the offense. He said it was, I mean, not that it's ever beneficial to get COVID, but the fact that he was still able to learn behind two guys and kind of slowly acclimate to the offense. And, one game does not a pro make. He's not all of a sudden going to be deemed the next MVP of anything because of one really good performance. But I think it's exciting to see a return on investment for a second round pick. Like the Packers drafted him to do this. And this, although it's a small sample size, is a glimpse at exactly what they think that he can do.
Yeah, exactly. Step in the right direction of what, we would be hoping for. I think Matt LaFleur seems excited to me about having 3 backs, all different skill sets. And, he clearly uses them well. I don't know, today at his press conference, he seemed really excited about it. He said that, he wanted to put AJ in there more last night. Yeah. And the running backs coach was like, he needs to like breathe. It's probably so hard to breathe when it's that cold. That just hit me. Like when you're running that hard. Oh my God. Anyway. So you had your dreams of watching AJ Dillon truck people through the snow in Lambeau Field, and your dreams came true.
It was a very merry belated Christmas for me on Sunday night.
I think it was a very merry belated Christmas for AJ Dillon as well. Okay, but there's so much more to the offense, right? We kind of touched on it, but Davante Adams is having himself in just absurd, historic all-pro season, and he had a number of catches where I was like, how does one make that? And how does one make that when it's blizzarding outside? One being the back shoulder end zone that I just thought there's no way. Like there's just no way. And then it looks easy and it's confusing. I can't imagine being a defender. I would just be like, I don't know what you wanted me to do there. And then same with that fourth quarter, just ridiculous grab, which I think Aaron Rodgers was like, it's slick out there. Like that's hard when it's not snowing and the ball is cold and wet. So I think unequivocally Davante Adams is an all-pro, and hopefully finally gets the recognition that he deserves around the league. and is also going into kind of a contract conversation area. So he must be feeling pretty good about himself right now.
Yeah. And I think Matt LaFleur had said too in his presser that it's a really good problem to have when you have Devontae Adams and AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones having such good nights that the offense doesn't even really need to look to guys like Robert Tonyan or Alan Lazard or MVS. And, obviously EQ had the touchdown, but we didn't see Mercedes Lewis really at all outside of blocking. Dominique Daphne got involved on some blocking and a catch on the sideline on like a wheel route. So it was just really fun to see all these different role players and to know that, yes, your offense still has all these weapons, but they didn't even need to turn to them because they just got such an exceptional game from 12 and 17. And, it is one really impressive for the offense and also probably really scary for other teams to see that yes. If you take Devontae away, they still have Big Bob and Big Dog and EQ and MVS and Alan Lazard and AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. But if you don't take Devontae away, then this is exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, no, it's true. I was thinking about it. I think I tweeted it earlier how like whenever your team that you root for is going up against another team, like you think about like who do you kind of have to plan for, right? And we talked about it all week. You got to plan for Derrick Henry. And you understand that the team has other weapons that the defense has to defend, but it's Derrick Henry. Yeah. And I think, Aaron Donald as well as a team. Like when you go up against the Rams, like you can't not be thinking about Aaron Donald. And there's probably others that we can think of around the league, Julio Jones, DeAndre Hopkins, like those kinds of players. And we have two.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers, always, and Devontae Adams. And this is when it kind of hit me that, other teams aren't as scary to me as the Packers are, because if you put yourself in other shoes and you think about who do you have to game plan for, you have to game plan for that. Someone who can beat you at the line of scrimmage, beat you in the short passing game, beat you with the deep ball, beat you with the back shoulder. Not the greatest bursting speed, but his route running is so good that it doesn't even matter. Jump ball, contested catch, like single coverage, double coverage, it doesn't matter. And, if you put one guy on him, he'll beat you. If you put two guys on him, you just said it. There's a myriad of other players that Aaron Rodgers can get the ball to, most accurate passer of the football. Like, actually, how do you stop this offense? I don't know. You need a Jair Alexander. Oh, too bad. We have him. So this is like the most confident I've ever been I've been so far this season and last season, honestly, about this team.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And, if you look at the rest of the NFC and what the playoff picture looks like, what we saw yesterday is exactly why you want the playoffs to funnel through Lambeau Field. And we've seen the Packers go on the road and compete. And obviously the Superdome is a different atmosphere when there aren't fans in the stands. But we've seen that this is a Packers team that can travel and play really well. But when you add the possibility, even if it's not snowing, if it's 20 degrees and there's Drew Brees and Tom Brady and Jared Goff, whoever is out there playing, that's a significant advantage. Devontae said, like, think about it. We practice in it. We're used to feeling it. We come out in short sleeves. Like, these are teams that step off the bus and you are slapped in the face with weather. And that in and of itself is an advantage without being the number one offense in the NFL.
Yeah. And it's interesting, especially in a year where home field advantage has been somewhat diminished because you don't have fans. So Superdomes and the Vikings Stadium and places that are normally quite difficult to play in are not as difficult to play in. I think it was someone on Good Morning Football this morning said it, like, Mother Nature is always there. That was the line that they used. Like, she's always your home field advantage. And there's nowhere like Lambeau Field. Maybe the Bills have it,
Yeah.
And that's all I can think of. But Chicago. But it's
they don't
different.
know about the playoffs in Chicago, really. So
the Bills don't really either, but true. We're digging at Chicago, not the Bills. No, but it's true. And I just can't imagine at least an NFC opponent, to be honest with you, that can march into Lambeau Field and beat this team at home, especially like maybe skill wise. Sure, you can make an argument for Seattle, you can make an argument for the Saints, but the heart, like it's the mentality of the Packers this season that's different to me on top of the skill level. Like, they want it. And like, this defense, and we'll segue now into defense, I guess, is like at the beginning of the season looked mediocre, below average at best. To think about how they have turned around this season, they've held their opponents, I think, in the last 4 games to 17 points or less. This defense, the Packers defense. Like, I know that it's hard to forget about the first half because, like, that's what I think about, but, like, they're ascending at the most perfect moment while the offense is clicking so well.
Yeah, like you wouldn't flip it, you know, as much as it's like, oh man, it would have been nice to see this earlier in the season. This is when you want it. You don't want to fall apart kind of heading into the playoffs, because we've seen Packers teams that do that, where you start to kind of lose some momentum and then you're either one and done or you're kind of struggling to sustain any type of momentum in the big plays and in the big dance. So yeah, I mean, I think, you know, this Packers team, you've got Darnell Savage, who very well could have had 4 interceptions against Ryan Tannehill, and Rashawn Gary had one of his best games. Like this, you've got so many pieces. You know, you mentioned Jair Island. Like there's so many different variables that you have to game plan for on the defense now too. If you have somebody locked up with Jair, you've got Adrian Amos in the box, and just there's so many really exciting things happening. And you know, Mike Pettin taking Kirko out of the Mike linebacker role, I think is really significant for what they've been able to do with Chris Barnes getting extended reps in the middle of the defense. Just absolutely everything you'd want cohesion wise from them.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, we're seeing Preston get back to what Preston did last season. Pressure, batting pat. When I saw him bat that pass down, I was like, this is what you're here for. Get those mitts up. But again, like we talk about, okay, who do you have to game plan for? It's Z and it's Jair. And you know that half the field is going to be locked down and you have to worry about Zadarius Smith. Well, now you're throwing in Rashawn Gary, who's just as disruptive, and you see both of them closing in on the quarterback often. Mm-hmm. So now you have to plan for both. But don't forget about Kenny Clark, who's going to stop your run game like that. I mean, he tackled Derrick Henry better than anyone I've ever seen. And this is okay. I guess this is why you pay him $75 million. But it just feels like everything's starting to click. And it's really exciting because I think you and I have said all season, like the pieces are there. The pieces are really there. And they're just starting to like mold into a beautiful, unstoppable photo.
Yeah. And Christian Kirksey had said in his post-game presser that like all the credit goes to Mike Pettin for this, like the game plan he had put together, the defensive scheme. And, you know, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about, but there was a stunt where Z split the defenders. And if he didn't get Tannehill, Rashawn Gary was right there.
I think it was meant for Rashawn, and Z slipped through and was like, oh, I guess I'll go.
Yeah. But it's so fun. Like, I think Rashawn had like 6 pressures. He led the team, but and I know, you know, the comments will say that Pro Football Focus isn't the Bible, which is absolutely true, but these are some of the highest grades that we've seen from this Packers defense. And, you know, the Bears are a good football team. There's a lot at stake on Sunday, you know, going into that game. They're going to have everything to play for. There's so much kind of on the line here for the Packers, but, you know, you said it, like, I don't think I've been this confident in a Packers team in a really long time. And that's scary because we are optimistic people that don't want to get our hopes up that this is anything beyond what it is. But
because all it's going to do is be disappointing.
But like, how long has it been since we've actually been like, no, the defense is legit?
It's been I mean, I've only felt that way probably the last 2 or 3 games. Mm-hmm. So again, it's like, is it real? Is it fake? But I will say that doing what they just did against arguably one of the best offenses in the league is promising. And same with I mean, that can also be said, I think, for the Panthers, right? Like they're top 10. So it's not like they've had like non-formidable opponents to prove it to, but there's nothing. Football is a game of confidence to me as much as skill.
Yeah.
And I think it's dangerous to have a group of players who are as athletic and as, you know, dominant as they've been to also be confident enough in themselves going into postseason. You know, these are also young guys who, I guess last season, maybe some rookies are out there who like, or they played on teams before they got to Green Bay that didn't make the postseason often, you know, like how many times did Adrian Amos make the postseason with the Bears? So that's my example. So
You
I
could
just
use
think I
Christian
feel
Kirksey.
great example. Christian Kirksey, right? Like there's a hunger there that I think you need in the postseason, because essentially everything gets reset. Once the regular season ends and you start the postseason, it's reset. Yes, there's a seeding, but like you're 0-0 and it's win or go home. And so I think there's like a level of, I think as Jair would call it, like dog mentality, that you have to know, like, okay, and if they're home, and that's like, it's a recipe for success to me.
Well, and I think what's like, I don't remember who, came up with the stat initially or who had posted the information, but like, you think about the fact that the Packers are a 32-minute plane ride from not having to leave Lambeau Field until potentially the Super Bowl. Like, you're flying to Chicago and you're staying in Central Time Zone. Like, it could not get easier for them. And somebody in the comments had said, Matt LaFleur in his presser today, he absolutely said, we're treating this like a playoff game. If you win this week, you get a bye week and you're already in the division round. You got to win
and
2 games.
And they need one.
Right.
Because they haven't had a bye week since week, what was it, 5?
Yeah.
So it's been a long drought for them. Like, and they don't have to travel. You're right. They literally can get a week off and be at home, and they don't have to travel. Oh, it's huge. Yeah. And it's like your division rival. Like, how much, like, as if you needed any more motivation.
Yeah. And it was, I think Aaron Jones said, like, there's just even like sleeping in your own bed. Like, there's so many routines and habits that you get. And if you can sustain all of that, and that's one of my favorite stories actually from the 2010 Super Bowl, was all the players talking about like, hey, did you sleep good? Yeah, I slept great, man. Oh, I slept really good too. And they just knew going into the game that they were going to win. And I feel
could not imagine sleeping well if I was like, I wouldn't.
I know, but that's how I feel about them hosting at Lambeau. There's like this quiet confidence where it's like, I'm in my routine. We're in the zone. We're in our home turf, which is something that, again, we talk about this all the time. Aaron Rodgers has never had. Like, they are so close to doing everything. Basically, every goal this team has set for themselves, aside from getting to the Super Bowl.
Right. No, it's big. And the moment doesn't feel too big either, at all. So, and especially I think when you have a leader like Aaron Rodgers, who's done this, he's been to the postseason. They played in the NFC Championship game last year. Like, they understand the gravity of what they are about to embark on. Andy did give me an interesting stat though, that if they make it to, they basically will have to have been on, because they're on a 3-0 win streak. They have to have 6 more games basically. So they have to go on a 9-game win streak for the Super Bowl, which when he put it like that, I was like, that sounds difficult. Is there a possibility that they can do that? But I think that there is, because of all the things that we just said, which is just like what this means. And it's everything that they've worked for.
And they're close.
And I just think that if they can have the NFC Championship game at Lambeau, I don't think there's stop. Like, Aaron Rodgers is going to go full beast mode. And if they make it to the Super Bowl, I was about to curse. There's no way there's no fucking way that Aaron Rodgers is letting go of that opportunity. Like, he hasn't needed to be Superman all year. And I hope that that's not how it ends up happening. But I just like believe in my heart of hearts that if they make it to the Super Bowl, there is 0% chance that Aaron Rodgers is letting that slip through his fingers. He's too competitive.
Well, and I really like the way you said that, because you said Aaron Rodgers doesn't have to be Superman, and by not having to be Superman, he has literally been Superman for the entire season. Yeah, like, he's playing his most relaxed football. He's bought into the scheme. Like, it's like the stars are aligning, and we have completely 180'd into not talking about the defense like we were going to, really. But it's just hard to not be excited about the trajectory that the team is on. Going into, I think Andy said it on Pack-A-Day last week, where if you had told Packers fans, like, at the start of the season, you just need to win at Soldier Field in week 17 and you can be the number 1 seed in the playoffs, like, Packers fans would take that 10 out of 10 times. And, I love the Packers-Bears rivalry. I think it's the best rivalry in all of sports. It's historic, but this is football. Like, this is when it starts to just feel really real. And It's
I'm
exciting.
surprised it's not getting flexed out, honestly. I know it got flexed to the 3:25 Central time, but like you're really going to choose Washington Eagles over this game for the Sunday Night Football? Like that was
I
surprising
think
to me.
I read somewhere that the only reason they did that is because it was the only game that like couldn't be spoiled. So like they have the Packers going concurrently with Seattle so that they don't know ahead of time if they have anything to play for or not.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, which is, I mean, everyone's like, I get it, I guess, but like still gross.
But like you're going to make the country watch our last, is there a Monday night game?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Okay. So our last game of the NFL regular season is going to be the Washington no-name football team and the Philadelphia Eagles, who are already eliminated. Like, you couldn't come up with something better than that. Like, anyway. Okay, we should go back to defense because I feel like there's so much we didn't talk about. We just really went on a tangent. Welcome, Big B.
Big B.
Happy you're here. Okay, anything else we didn't mention?
I don't, I'm really excited, and I do want your take on this because Andrew and I did this on the recap of Pack a Day. If you had to pick a player of the game, and let's do defense because I feel like, we said this on the show, like Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams could be player of the game every week, but who is your player? And I'm curious if we'll overlap on this one.
It's Darnell Savage.
Yep. Okay.
It's Darnell Savage and Rashawn Gary, but that's because like everything that not everything, but a lot of what Darnell Savage was able to impact in the secondary was from pressure from Rashawn Gary up front. But I don't know. I mean, come on. Savage had multiple pass breakups, an interception, a dropped pick six. Let's call it what it was. Just he was seeing end zone and he didn't have it, and it would have been a pick six and almost a safety blitz sack. So he's just like really eased himself into this very versatile weapon that's being used in all areas. And it's really exciting. It's really exciting to have a player like him, especially someone who you had such high hopes for because you know how athletic he is. And you saw what he did at Maryland, where he was very similar to this, like played all over the field, played slot corner, played safety. Now he's doing that for this team, and it's impacting the game immensely. So it's Darnell.
And there were plenty of people, Zach Cruz said it, a couple other people on Twitter that had mentioned, like, is there a better tandem right now in football than Jair Alexander and Darnell Savage as far as an up-and-coming tandem with a safety and corner? And then I don't remember who it was, but somebody threw in Adrian Amos. And, I think the tandem of Adrian Amos and Darnell Savage, even excluding Jair, which is hard to do because he has an island. It's so exciting to see, and Darnell Savage looked great. I thought Adrian Amos played a really good game. Vernon Scott came in. Had some opportunities when they had dropped Adrian into the box, and I thought he looked good. Like there was so much to like from the secondary.
Adrian is one of the surest tacklers that we have.
Yeah.
I mean, he had some tackles on Derrick Henry where I was like, you're playing like you're Kenny Clark sized. And you're not, you know what I mean? Like but that's like the presence that he brings. I could talk all day about our secondary. I think that they are right. Like they're not one dimensional.
Yep.
I don't know how else to put it other than that. Like they clearly have their strength. Like each of them has their strengths, right? Jair he's going to click and close on you. He's not going to let you get your route in. He's going to break up the pass. He's not necessarily going to get the interception, but he's not going to let you catch the ball. Kevin is good on the outside. He's tall. He's not been the best tackler, but his size allows for them to match him and Jair up differently. We already talked about Savage and Amos. Amos in the box is phenomenal, amazing tackler, always in the right place. It's when you have a front that's creating pressure and a secondary that won't let you complete a pass, I guess what I'm trying to say is this defense is operating exactly as Mike Pettin wanted it to, and it's working. I think it's easy to get annoyed or upset when it's not working because when it's not working, it's big chunk plays. and Dalvin Cook running through you. But when it is working, it's keeping one of the best offenses in the league to 14 points. So I think there's a lot to be said about the way that their athleticism has been translated.
Yeah, and I think those are, like, we talk about all the time the complement of the offense and the defense, but I think we're also seeing from Mike Pettin right now a complement of pressure, creating interception opportunities or pass deflections, and then coverage generating sacks. Like, there's a really nice complement of everything kind of working cohesively. And I don't know if I would have to pull the numbers if Mike Pettin's playing a little less dime or like what has changed in the last couple weeks, or if it's just the guys. It kind of feels like after the talk they had, just let us do our thing, that's kind of when the arrow started to climb.
You know what's changed? No more 3-man rush.
That's true.
There's no more 3-man rush, and it's working. Because we have personnel to rush for every time.
Knock on wood, just to make sure it doesn't revert back to.
I know. They've been playing a good amount of nickel because I see Chandon Sullivan on the field like a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, I mean, I kind of look at this and think about the way that Goot has drafted, the way that he has handled the offseason the last couple of years, and that it may not necessarily has always looked good, but it's starting to come together. And like you see last year's and the years prior draft picks impacting now, and they're young. So you know that they're the future, right? Like you're watching what the next generation, if you will, of this team is going to be. But like they're also so good now that they could win a Super Bowl this year. And they're all on like their rookie contracts. Like that's by definition like what you want is a quarterback you're paying $1 bajillion to, a star wide receiver, and then your rookie contract players making the impact that the Packers are. Like that is the recipe for winning. That's why people love also having the rookie quarterback, because you're not paying him and you can invest, but we have the opposite.
Yeah,
I guess. So maybe it's not the formula that everyone else thinks that it should be, but it's clearly working.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's, you know, the Packers have done this for a long time where they have sustained success by using that very formula where you have certain guys that you're paying the big bucks to that are kind of the pieces that you feel you can't replace or that you need that veteran presence for. And then the draft is where they're finding a lot of these guys. And even if you wanted to go back to like MVS and EQ, like they're not necessarily world beaters as far as the roles that they have on the team. But Aaron Rodgers has said, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with being a role player. And this offense is the perfect example of that. Like maybe they wouldn't be the players that they are in a different offense, but they're exactly what they need to be for the Packers. And that's why, you know, every draft pick matters. And, you know, maybe Jordan Love is going to be a 15-year All-Pro future Hall of Famer too. But, you know, to have AJ Dillon and even some of the rookies making the jumps that they have, Jay Sternberger, you know, who's out right now with an injury, but will come back. Like you're just getting significant investment from so many pieces.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like, obviously if those pieces don't hit, then you're shit out of luck, but the pieces hit. So, patience, I guess, on the pieces. Peace. I'm looking for some questions, but I can't find a ton. People are just pretty pumped. I mean, yeah, like, you know.
Yeah.
This is interesting to me. So they only really allowed 50 yards when it was the game was still within reach. I just think what they did against Derrick Henry was really impressive. Just really impressive. Unfortunately, it surprised me, right? Like, not that I didn't think that Derrick Henry was going to truck through them. I had a feeling that there would be some level of containment, but not to the level that they were able to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we've seen Derrick Henry put up less rushing yards in other games that the Titans won. So you take that trade-off 10 out of 10 times. Like we had said on Packs What She Said, you know, if he gets 200 yards and the Packers win, like, yes, those are glaring things that you want this defense to address, but the Packers won the football game. And it really doesn't feel like there's a lot that we're like, oh man, I think his longest run was 10 yards, maybe 11 yards. And then you look at Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon and the numbers they put together, and it's just, it was really a dominant performance from the Packers defense in just about every phase.
It was. I loved the 4th and 1. I'm not going to lie. Like, that's what we've been screaming for all season, is put AJ Dillon in situations like that, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, and then he doesn't just get one, he goes to the end zone. Like, all right, dude, do less. No.
Never do less.
Never do less. No, I'm joking. But yeah, I think there were just a lot of also just like moments like that where it's like they did what they needed to and then some.
Yeah. It's like they all wanted to outdo each other. Like Aaron Rodgers had said that the defense kind of holistically, it felt like a confidence game, and it was like their best performance of the season. And it just felt like there was this level of like, oh, you did that? Watch what I'm going to do. And I love that mentality going into the playoffs. And I think it was AJ Dillon had said just, the cohesion of the team. And we talk about last season, how special the team felt and how close knit. And, I think kind of the situation that we find ourselves in now with the pandemic, you see teams that are breaking protocol, or, Kenny Clark, a bunch of players had said in the beginning of the season, like, if we're going to get to where we want to go, it's going to take literally every single person in this locker room.
Yeah.
And I think the Packers are like,
especially.
And I think that they're like the most accurate representation of that. Just everybody literally banding together and saying like, it's us against everybody else. And we all have to do our 111th, as Matt LaFleur likes to say. And if we do that, they're the only team that can stop them is themselves.
Yeah, and we've seen that. I was actually thinking about this game, like the Colts game, and they're opposites, right? Like the Colts have an amazing defense, offense is so, but they're in the same division, and I feel like the Titans and the Colts are always like neck and neck, right? They're like fairly equal teams, just good at different things. And the Colts game was so just the Packers shooting themselves in the foot. Like after watching what they did against the Titans, like I just feel like they could have much more easily have beat the Colts.
Yeah.
I don't know why I was thinking about the Colts game today. I was bored.
Well, and it's just another one of those, like, take your foot off the gas. Like not that they got lucky against the Panthers, but like we talked a lot about wanting to see the Packers finish games. And if you look at maybe the Vikings loss, even like there were opportunities for the Packers to put that game away that they didn't. And then it came back to bite them. And I think that, that's why this game is so impressive, is because it was against a really fantastic offense. And we still saw the Packers able to run up the score and keep the game at an arm's reach the entire time.
Yeah. It's almost like a reflex to try to find something bad just so that like, because confidence is scary.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm like, there's nothing.
Special teams. Let's talk about that.
Talk special teams. Yeah. Oh, so quick just for this question. Apparently today Matt LaFleur said that he's going to be okay, but that's like literally all there. So we don't really know about Rick Wagner yet, unfortunately. Any concern about Allen Lazard's performance as wide receiver 2 since he has come back? No. I mean, obviously, like our last memory of him was like having his like big game against the Saints, so it's potentially skewed. But I think he's still getting his targets. He's still being turned to by Aaron Rodgers on 3rd down. I just think when you have what Rodgers and Devontae are on right now, like, why go anywhere else?
Yeah. I mean, I'd really like him to get like 70 more yards so that he can be the fourth Packer with 500 yards in the season. But yeah, I mean, I think, we talked about this a little bit in the beginning of the show where, EQ got a touchdown and Robert Tonyan had like one catch for 20 or 30 yards.
His classic catch. They always do that with him.
Yeah. And like Dominic Daphne had a catch, and there were just so many other guys involved that Lazard didn't really need to be the guy beyond creating some massive holes for AJ Dillon. Like in the blocking game, he was just fantastic.
Agreed. Okay. This is an interesting one that I want your take on. So what do you see differently in the Bears offense since the last time we played them? And having Hicks back is going to be tough.
Yeah. I like Hicks. I think, we talked about, I think you on the very show that we are on right now, Perri, called it a Hicks size hole in the middle of the field. So
I may have said that.
That sounds familiar. I may have, but yeah, I mean, I think that's going to make a difference for the defense. Obviously we talked about it. Not that they didn't have something to play for on Sunday Night Football when they came to Lambeau, but this feels really significant win and you're basically in the playoffs. So, I think Mitch Trubisky has confidence right now. And especially, if you kind of see in the media that talks about maybe they extend him one more season or they keep him around and, whatever happens there, there's some cohesion now on the offense that I don't think was there. So I think there's more to play for. The offense has put up a significant number of points the last 4 weeks, but we talked about this pre-show. Yeah, we talked about this pre-show. It's just not the same kind of caliber of defense that we're seeing now from the Packers. And they're not playing against the number one offense in the NFL. So every score, you think the Packers will match it.
I don't think that Akeem Hicks necessarily I think this offense can handle Akeem Hicks. We put up 40 last time we played them. Akeem Hicks doesn't stop 40 points from happening. Maybe it's closer, but he is just only one guy. I do think it'll be more difficult to run the ball with Akeem Hicks in there. That's just fact. But Matt LaFleur has gotten creative, and we now have A.J. Dillon, right, who the Bears have never played against. So, he trucked through a defensive lineman last night. Let's see what he can do against a Bears front. I think if our offensive line plays like they have been, and yeah, I think you're right that with the confidence and the cohesion, I think when we last played the Bears, it was is it Nick Foles? Is it Trubisky? There's confusion there. Who are you game planning for? But at the same time, it's Mitch Trubisky. And I think that he has a ceiling, and we've seen the ceiling, and how to stop him. This is a common opponent. Like you mentioned, there's not real travel, time zone. There's nothing about this game that would ever lead me to believe that the Packers would lose it. They know what's on the line. David Montgomery has been running the ball better, but again, after watching what this defense could do against Derrick Henry, I don't see any scenario where they're not going to be able to stop David Montgomery and Mitchell Trubisky.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that Andrew Mertig had mentioned on Pack-A-Day last night was honestly being more afraid of the Soldier Field than necessarily of the Bears. And that's not really any disrespect to the football team as much as we've seen Aaron Jones always seems to get injured every time he plays at Soldier Field. So there's just kind of that element of being worried that this is the absolute worst time of year to deal with any type of injury, especially to a really key player. So just hoping that the Packers come out of this one healthy. And I'm hoping, I don't know why I made the comparison in my head, but it feels like this game could potentially, because it's a division game, have the potential to be kind of what we saw week 17 last season, where it was a really slow start against a division to clinch the number 2 seed. And we're
I hope that's not what this game is.
I hope that too, but it's why aren't they playing with their hair on fire? They had so many opportunities, and then the Bears are going to want it just as bad.
The number 2 already, or it was for the number 2?
I think it was for the bye week.
Interesting. Yeah, it just, I don't know, it feels different. I could see that happening because division games are just wonky, and they're always wonky, but this is for the 1 seed. They're thinking NFC Championship game at home.
Yeah.
And I just feel there's it just is another level to it, but maybe I'm just trying to project what I hope happens.
Well, no, and I think we've talked about this. There's a very real possibility that this is a 13-3 team for the second season. But last year we had said the Packers are going to be a better team with a worse record. So I think last season
with the same record.
Right. And I think last season, week 17, we were seeing kind of what was happening with a defense that we didn't trust as much, with an offense that was still learning a scheme. So yeah, I mean, it is very different going into week 17 this season, knowing what's at stake. Last year, the Packers did not have the number 1 scoring offense. That's apples and oranges.
Yeah, no. I think apples and oranges is a good way to describe it. But at the same time, right, it's fair, and the Bears are on a hot streak, and the Bears also have a ton to play for. Yeah. Think about think about from their perspective. If I was a Bears fan, I'd be you can spoil the Packers number 1 seed and get yourselves into the playoffs if you win this game at home. That's also a lot of motivation. And
am I doing my math right? That if the Bears were the 7th seed and then they kept the Packers out of the 1 seed, that they would play again at Lambeau Field in the wild card, 2-7.
Well, the Packers wouldn't be wild card. Oh wait,
yeah, because it'd be 2-7, right? Somebody correct my math. Yeah, so I'm saying that there's a lot for the Bears to potentially be spoiling if.
But also that means then that means then that the Bears, after spoiling the Packers 1 seed, would then have to go to Lambeau to play the team that they just fucked over.
I know, I'm just saying.
Okay. No, I know this is all just conjecture, but are there gonna be fans at Soldier Field?
That I don't know.
That would be interesting if there were. I'll have to look that up. Anyway, I don't have a ton more to say about the game, honestly. Just that it was just a really complete game, and I think should leave everyone very confident about what the Packers can do in the postseason.
Yeah. I mean, I think, we said it pre-show, we said it during the show that this game just came at a really good time for the Packers to know what they can do. Like this, I mean, it's not saying every week is going to look like this, but this is kind of the shining example of what this team is and what this team can be. And that's exactly what you want now, so that you always have this example in the playoffs and beyond as like, this is exactly what we're capable of. And it's not like they beat the Jets, right? Like this was a 10-5 team, playoff contenders, leading rusher, all pro rusher, really explosive, and just
season year all pro rusher.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry's having the Devontae Adams of running back seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I also think there's something, this is, I guess my last thought here is, I think there's something to be said too for like making teams fear you. Yeah. Because if you, whether it's real or it's fake, right? Like I think that the fear of going up against the Packers offense the fear is real. But also teams play differently when you're a dominant opponent. I think that's like the Chiefs effect almost, is like you just expect to lose. You almost not expect to lose because they're all competitors, but you know what I'm trying to say? Like there's this like, this is clearly the superior team, and you just play differently when you don't feel like you can beat a team. And I just feel like there's some level of that like effect that the Packers have on teams. Okay. Sorry, Mom. So sorry, Mark. I'm really so sorry. So sorry. The Jets just screwed themselves over too. Like it is just, it's all bad. Okay. Any last parting words for the fine folks who joined us tonight?
I feel like I say this every week, but just like, this has been such a fun ride. And the fact that we are so excited in week 16, going into week 17, talking about what's at stake here and what's kind of in front of this Packers team. Like, I'm all for being a fan, however you want to be a fan. And if that means you want to be hypercritical of everything, or if that means you want to be optimistic or whatever, but like, I fully intend to enjoy every freaking second of this ride whenever it ends. And hopefully that ends, hoisting a Lombardi. But this has been a very special season. And I just am trying to, in my life, be more grateful for moments and things and opportunities like that. And this season was a really fucking good way to kind of wrap up 2020. That has not been a very good year.
I could not agree more. You said it. Yeah. We're going to leave it at that. So thank you all. It was too good, Thank you all for joining us. This hour went by very fast. Please enjoy tonight's showing. Hopefully the Bills win. And thank you. And we'll be back next week. Hopefully another Victory Monday celebrating the 1 seed. But regardless, we will be here to talk about whatever happens against the Bears. And what else do I need to say? Yeah, follow Game On Wisconsin. There's shows all week. I mean, at this point, if you don't know, like, come on.
Gotta be inner circle.
You can follow us at Perri_Goldstein, at Maggie J. Loney on Twitter. We do a ton of stuff all around, and all of that is in our Twitter bios, and that is the best way to find it all. So, Maggie, you enjoy your spotted cow and your night, and we'll see you all next week.
Go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.